Spectacular Saturday, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of the D Word. This is from the Divorce Dynasty. You know that with the Divorce Dynasty, we always bring some exciting guests that will help change your lives in so many different ways. My name is Furley Almonte. I'm one of your hosts, and my co host, Carolina Denhard Esquire, is not able to join us again because she is serving many clients. But anyway, this is still going to be super exciting and life transforming in so many different levels. Well, in life, especially in relationships, right? We go through many different celebrations, weddings, anniversaries, christenings, sweet 16s, whatever it may be, right? But in, say, for example, in the realm of divorce, or we celebrate engagement. Oh, actually, this is what I wanted to say. There are three rings involved in a relationship, a romantic relationship, so to speak: the engagement ring, wedding ring, and then end of suffering, which is the divorce. So, anyway, we're going to actually delve on something, in a way that we are going to celebrate those life transitions we have in our lives. Well, my guest today is a super, super awesome expert when it comes to events planning because he has over 20 years of experience, wealth of knowledge in the field of event planning and execution because he has already planned and executed more than 20 years of iconic and prestigious events in in actually in the areas of New York City and Miami. Oh, those are totally party centrals. And he is very discriminating when it comes to his taste in his in the way he actually puts details into these events. But you know what? We're all going to learn about this from him because in the midst of a pandemic right now, so many live events specialists are struggling because the gigs have dried up, events are closed. How do you actually become more resilient in your business in a pandemic? Well, my guest is super awesome, wise, and also very innovative and creative when it comes to reinventing yourself and your business. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Jeff Stillwell of Stillwell Events. Hi, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. So happy to be with you.
Oh, thank you. Where are you right now? Are you in New York or Miami?
I'm actually in Miami. I had a wedding down here last week, which is one of the few and far between these days in particular. But yes, I had a wedding. It's all outside, smaller number of people. I think that's where it's kind of gone, especially in Miami. We can still do them outside. And so it was on the water downtown Miami, had a ceremony, a small ceremony, about 40 people. And then after the ceremony, then we moved inside where these French doors were all open air, so we could still have dinner, and had dinner for 40. And then additional 30 people came a little bit later for an after party. So
Oh, that's really very awesome. See, like so many people are actually finding ways to celebrate their special occasions in a different ways. First of all, Jeff, I would love to learn more about you as a person because I had the chance to speak with you and I noticed that you are really perfectionist when it comes to your craft and you're also impeccable when it comes to the way you do your relationships with whether it be personal or business. Tell me, how did your career in life events start?
well, I think what kind of differentiates me from most planners is I was on the operations side for over 20 years in New York, which I was the director of operations, director of banquets at some of the most iconic catering facilities in the city. So I think this gave me a lot of insight that some planners maybe didn't go through. I think sometimes you have to be, on the ground as far as a war is concerned to know exactly what to do. And I can see a problem coming a mile away because of my years of being on the operations side. Um, I know events from ground up. I know how long it takes to do a turn from ceremony to from ceremony to turning to dinner. I know how long it takes to set something up. I know how long it takes to get the food out of the kitchen for the entree because I was the director of banquets. I know all those little steps. And when there's a problem, there's sometimes I can see the problem a mile away that there's going to be an issue with something. And a lot of that has to do too with having a very, very detailed timeline for an event. And the timeline, sometimes you don't know all those little timing things if you haven't really been on the ground and know how we get from point A to point B. So I think those years of being on the operations side has definitely made me a better planner. It's made me more intuitive, I think, to know what's the makeup of the party. And I think it's helped me in my job as well. I've started my own company a little over 5 years ago as Stillwell Events.
Yeah,
So
that's really awesome because a lot of people who are actually, of course, we all get very excited about planning our own events, and a lot of people think that just because they planned one special event that they're already qualified to
right,
create an event for other people, right? Now,
yeah.
what actually speak on that? But how could that be catastrophic?
Well, and, like there's a lot of people that maybe they did their sister's wedding and thought it was fun, so I think I'll be a planner. Or, that can get you in trouble because, I mean, first of all, just start at the elementary level of it. Your vendor list is so important that you have a group of vendors that you work with that are proven. You count, when you start doing a wedding, you don't want someone that, you don't know really well, like a band or a photographer or all these vendors are so important. And through the years, I've created this vendor list that's endless as far as it's all very, very good quality, but I like a good value for my clients. And so that's something to find. Maybe a photographer that's not the most expensive, but they are just as good as the ones that are the most expensive. And by me being able to go through all these different people, all these different years, it's given me a really solid vendor list, which I think is so key to starting to build your event. Then even venues, it's so important too to pick a venue that's great with all different aspects of the event. It can't be just the food. It's got to be the food. It's got to be the timing. It's got to be a beautiful space, and also you have to have a venue that can work with clients, especially like in a pandemic. There's so many people that signed up for these different venues, and then pandemic hit. Then they weren't being flexible. They weren't being flexible at all with the clients, and they were charging all these different fees and all these things. These people, they were caught between the rock and the hard place as far as trying to change dates. They were charging fees for changing dates. They were charging fees for all this. So most of the venues that I was dealing with during the pandemic, they were so open arms and they were just willing to do anything they could do to help these clients out in this difficult time. Last thing in the world you want is to be at a venue that's not being flexible and not helping you to get a different date or to change things. This, like a lot of people had to change from a really live event to a virtual event. And you had to have the capabilities to be able to do that. You have to know the right people to do that. And it's not so simple just to switch a switch and all of a sudden you become all live now or all in, not live, but virtual in a live setting. So I think that's one thing that back in June of last year, I came up with a part live, part virtual wedding. And it was all about projection and photo mapping and making, we found a great venue in Chelsea that had those capabilities. So we had around 15 people live, and then we had about 50 people that were virtual. So, and we were doing this at a time when there weren't a lot of virtual weddings going on. There were some virtual non-for-profit fundraisers, but not weddings. It's a different thing. And it's a different, you've got to really look at it a little bit differently. The technology, of course, is the same, but how you treat the event is very important because we would start it with the ceremony part, which we sent gifts to all of our virtual guests to make them feel like that they were part of the real live experience. And the little gift had a little mini wedding cake, had little bottles of champagne, and even a program of the ceremony, which made them feel like that they were really there. And they would receive these gifts. Then we had our AV team was like none other. They created a virtual experience before there were a lot of people doing the virtual experience. And all that had to do, a lot of it had to do with projection and photo mapping, which Even the backdrop of the virtual guests had the same backdrop that you were in the venue. And then using a 2 to 3 camera angle too. The virtual guests were like they had a front row seat to the whole thing. And it wasn't like they were, like a lot of the Zoom weddings, possibly, that you have all the technical problems. People aren't at right angles, but that didn't happen in this venue, which a lot of that, like I said, had to do with the team that we put together. We had the best of the best as far as photographers and videographers, the tech people. They were literally the tech people. We had a rehearsal for the virtual aspect of the wedding, just as the same as you would have. You'd be ready to go if you're in a live setting. So by doing the rehearsal, then our tech people were able to find out any kind of AV problems that they were having. They would send items to their home, help set everything up for them. And then when you had the live aspect of it, the live and the virtual could come together, and it's all one big event, which it worked
Jeff,
really well.
let me ask you a question. Actually, like I am looking, like I'm going through my mind. What would it look like? Would it be like on television shows right now, right? Like, say, for example, the Kelly Clarkson show, right? There's the studio, there's a few people in there, but and then there are people on the background on virtual. Is that pretty much the same idea?
It's the same idea. And so, like, for instance, one of the ceremonies that we did, the backdrop was I did cherry blossoms, and it was like you're in the middle of a cherry blossom orchard.
So
And
everybody will have cherry blossom virtual background.
yes, that's well, basically it's projected. And then within the projection of the cherry blossoms, the virtual aspects, he had like cutouts, basically, which one side of the wall on the one side of the venue, we had all the different, like the Brady Bunch boxes was what I always call them. And then whenever someone's doing a virtual toast on the opposite wall, the entire wall was that projection. So that you really felt like that they were in the room with you. You didn't feel like that they were not with you.
That's
Um,
really very, very cool. Now, I actually love that idea. What would you do for somebody, say, for example, a 90-year-old grandma or grandpa in Florida and do not know the technical aspect of it? How do you help those people who may be technically challenged?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so that's when we would, like the week of, the AV company would contact us, all the different virtual people. They would like do a little dry run with them. And if there were any technical problems, that gave them a few days to be able to send them whatever equipment that they needed for the virtual experience. And then on the day of the wedding, we actually do a rehearsal with the virtual people at a certain point before you go live, just to make sure everyone's on, make sure everyone didn't have any problems signing on to the whole thing, and then we could work all those problems out. And so we would have the virtual part first. We would even have, like, myself was like the MC basically of the virtual guest. And you get everyone on, make sure everyone's okay, tell them the technical issues. At this point, we're going to do this, this, and this, and just kind of explain everything to them. Then we would go live. We had the ceremony portion, and then we'd go straight into like a first dance. We'd have to do all the regular things of a wedding. First dance, we did some speeches. We had virtual speeches, and then we also had a couple of live speeches. So it was just like a real wedding. And then what I did was the majority of them, we'd go ahead and cut the cake, and then everyone has their own cake that we'd sent them out in the mail. You had your champagne, they could do a toast, and then get all of those, the toast and all the things that we could do interacting with the virtual and live. And then at that point, we would have a couple of dance songs. Even had the dance floor that had the dance decor of it was peonies. And so we had 5 feet apart with the peonies. So we had our live couples, they had the social distancing. And that, therefore we could actually literally do live dancing with the virtual dancing. People in the virtual were dancing also. And then a couple more toasts, and then we would end the virtual portion of the wedding. Then we did a little bit of a turn in the room, and then we had the live guests had a dinner. So the virtual people didn't feel like that they were missing out on anything necessarily, because we got all the logistical kind of wedding things done at the beginning, and then the live guests, could actually have a more of a normal, I guess you could say, dinner. So
Yeah. Do you see this integration of the virtual and the live going forward as a viable option for so
yeah,
many people who may want to get together? Or especially those people, say for example, would like to go on a destination wedding, for instance, right? But no, not everybody could fly to whatever exotic location you want to go, but you want them
right.
to feel, them to feel that they're part of the experience. This is really incredible. Is there a place, do you have a website where they can pretty much get a better feel of what this would be like?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I've got the landing page of my website as we speak is um, it's basically this virtual experience that I'm speaking about. So, and you
Yeah,
can get a very good virtual or a very good visual of it. And I think going on and seeing it, that you can see that on my website, or there's another called Party Slate is another platform that you can go on and see the entire thing. I've got the virtual live. I call it the hybrid. It's what I actually
hybrid.
call this web type, and you can get a beautiful idea of how it all works and be able to see it in visually.
In terms of cost, how much less does this, or I don't know how much more work involved it is, to
Mhm.
be able to send all of those cakes and other things ahead of time to the different guests. In terms of cost, can you speak about that compared to the overall cost of a live event or a live wedding versus a virtual hybrid, so to speak?
Well, you could do the hybrid in different levels, but the levels that I've been doing, I would say it's comparable to doing your regular wedding. Of course, you've got a lot less live people as far as numbers of people are concerned, and really the great thing about this is that you can go up as far as, like for instance in Florida, you can do more live people than you can now in New York. In New York, you can only do 10 people live. At one point, it got much higher, but then it went back down again. So I would say you could do what's comparable to 100 people. You could do live. You could do 25 virtual, and then as far as the hybrid, the virtual part of it is it's pretty much endless. But you've got to have your initial cost, like to do 50 people virtual, 20 people virtual. It's about the same pricing because you've got to have your venue and you've got to have the company that's going to be coming in to do all of the AV and all the technical part of it.
Cheaper
And
for food because obviously you don't have to serve 100 steaks as opposed to just like
that's exactly right. So that's where a lot of the money is eaten up, would be in the AV portion of it. The venue itself, because you have to have a venue, whether it's 15 people or 50 people, you still got to have the same venue. So I would say you could have about 20 people of a virtual live would be comparable to about 100 people if you had just everyone in. Because of the AV aspect of it, it does definitely bring the price up.
okay, that's wonderful. Actually, I'd like to speak on behalf of Carolina in here because she sent me a message before we went on air because that we're part of the divorce dynasty.
Yeah,
And we are actually a group of vetted professionals in many different industries, you know, whether it be a divorce lawyers, criminal immigration lawyer, realtors, insurance agent, like life coaches, lifestyle management people, so many different ones that I could not remember right on top of my head, including of course wedding professionals such as yourself. Now so many people are also finding love the second time around, right?
right.
So from okay, there is of course that, have you ever done a divorce party at all?
I haven't done a divorce party yet. Not.
Okay, because I,
I've-
I actually met somebody before, because one of the different things that I do is I'm also a resilience coach, so I go through many life transitions
right,
of people. And so oftentimes they're celebrating the freedom, the newfound freedom that they have through the
right.
divorce. They'd
I've done
like
a
to
lot of divorced weddings, where second, third, time getting married, but I've not actually done one where you're celebrating the divorce.
celebrating a divorce. Hey, listen, like any reason to party, why not, right?
Why not?
Why
I
not?
totally agree.
Okay, for those people who are having second, third weddings, what is basically the trend right now? Do you do the same? Do you splurge the same way as a first wedding, or do they do it a lot more intimately?
It's more intimate, definitely. But there are still some people that have a second wedding that it's the big whole thing. But yeah, definitely more of a smaller setting, more intimate, more refined. I think it's because you're not 20 anymore. A lot of the second weddings are you're a little bit older than that, and so the guest list is very different. You don't invite necessarily everyone in your office. We used to have as offices. Now that's not the norm. Everything's virtual, but yeah, it's definitely more thought out as far as the guest list is concerned. There's people that my rule of thumb is if they're not haven't been in your life for 5 years, you shouldn't invite them to your wedding. It's got to
Oh,
be.
actually, that's a new rule. And actually, speak on that a little bit. Like when it comes to creating a guest list, and you want to keep it safe, for example, 50 to 100, who are the
Mhm.
people that need to be there?
Well, of course, the family, intimate family, your immediate family, and even the distant relatives. If you may have a first cousin that you haven't seen in 15 years, I wouldn't necessarily say that they need to be invited. I think it's people that you have constant interaction with, people that you speak with regularly. That's a way to get the guest list more realistic. And then it's not just you're trying to get around to everyone at the wedding. You literally these are people that you know well, you're intimate with. I think it's I don't think that in today's age that you have to invite, the third cousin that you haven't seen in 20 years. I think it's better just to keep it more intimate and keep it the people that are more close to you. Um, I think it's just a better wedding. It's a better experience. Everyone there, are your closest friends, your closest relatives, and I don't think that you have to invite everyone nowadays. So
Actually, I kind of like also the idea of the virtual, because now you can have a lot more people than what you can actually even spend on, and they
right.
feel they're a part of it. So that is a really big advantage also of having a hybrid, so to speak. Jeff, in reading your bio, you had also mentioned that you infuse Southern charm when it comes to creating your weddings. So, what is that unique Southern charm that you infuse to your
Well,
services?
that's I think a lot of that has to do with maybe a I don't know. People when you're getting married and when you're having an event, it's very personal. So I think that I throw in there a lot of just making people feel comfortable. I think too is a big part of it, and making them to feel like that they're a part of your life, and they're letting you into their life, and vice versa for a good 6 to 8 months prior to a wedding or even a year. And I think that I don't know. I think being in New York and being a Southerner, there's a fine line between it being a little bit, too strong, too little. I think that it's helped me in business because it's kind of softened me a little bit. It's made people be able to trust me a little quicker, possibly being in New York than it could if I hadn't have had that. And I don't know. I just think that people in the South are a little bit more laid back. They're a little bit more homespun, and I think that they can get into your life a little bit easier,
You
possibly.
are home base. Actually, your base is actually New York City and Miami. It
hmm
doesn't mean that you only service the people in that area, right? Do you travel in other states?
I do. Of course, in New York, you got the Connecticut, Jersey, all right there together. I do mostly in Manhattan, mostly in New York, but I do travel out some. And then I've had a place down in Miami for about 20 years. And with the pandemic kicked in, I thought, okay, I need to, open my horizons a little more and do some more things in Miami. And that's why I'm down here, because we can actually do things outside in Miami where New York you can't. So I've expanded. I've been trying to network down here a little bit more, and it's paying off. And I've had some great. I have a whole list of events that are coming up soon in Miami. And it's been basically because of the pandemic pushed me down here, but it gives me a great excuse to come to Miami now. So I like that.
What differences do you see between New York-based clients and Miami-based clients? Like, do they have specific things that they're looking for or want to be included in their weddings?
Well, I think New York and Miami has become, it's like going to the Hamptons basically because of air travel being so open. and there's so much of it as far as going to Miami. It's like another shuttle service, and so a lot of New Yorkers go to Miami for the winter, and it's a lot of the people are the same people. Actually, it's like a different neighborhood coming to Miami. It's not really a majorly different crowd. It's very similar as the New York and Miami.
In your events with Stillwell events, right? Do you
Mhm.
have a specific touch or style that is uniquely yours, that is identifiable, so to speak?
I think that definitely my clientele, my caliber of events is definitely in the luxury side. It's definitely more refined and sophisticated, and I think that that has to do with the two markets I'm dealing with. Um, I think that I think always having a little personal touch in your event is very important. Making it you. Like a lot of times, people will say, "Okay, I want this white flower. I want the white and green flowers, like almost a lot of weddings are." And I always said, well, is that your personality? I think that you got to get to know your client and try to start pulling these things out of your client so that your events are unique. You don't want it like everyone else's. That's one thing that I really push, and I sometimes it's hard to pull people out of that shell. They think they know what they want, and then by the time we finish the planning, it's very different than they would have originally thought that it would have been. It may be as simple as bringing color into the whole wedding. Not necessarily everything have to be white. I think now with this whole pandemic, it's become much more personal as far as the decor. It could be even as simple as having the table set. Now that you've got 3 tables to do instead of 15, you can make it a little more home. You can have some of the decor on the table, heirlooms, maybe some things from your grandparents or your parents, or you can bring this a little more personal into it because you don't have to do so many tables. So you could use possibly a charger plate that they're all different and they're from your grandmother's china cabinet, and just basically just trying to make it more like you're going into someone's home instead of you're going into a big massive venue where everything is very cookie cutter.
I love that, because basically you are able to infuse a lot of luxury, at the same time personal touches. I love that you're able to customize it that way.
Yeah.
Um, Being that you are such a maven at this, what would so many live events professionals right now in many different, obviously, specialties are struggling? What would be your advice to these people to be able to become a lot more resilient, and so not to be discouraged through this pandemic?
Yeah, you've got to think out of the box a little bit. You've got to really, like, for instance, most of my events before the pandemic were larger, 150, 200 people. Now, of course, you've got to really think about how to find a venue that you can have outside area. So I think that's become very, very popular. That's one reason why I'm in Miami right now. And a lot of these venues are actually changing how they do events. Maybe they had an outside area that they never used before. Now they're utilizing that. Of course, you got to utilize any outdoor space that you have. So I think that you have to really be open to change, because this whole thing is about change, and you've got to be open to that and be able to alter it so that it's still an exciting experience, although it's not like you originally thought it was going to be. There have been some people that have just said, okay, I'm postponing. I'm going to wait until I can have the party that I want to have. But then some people are, we're talking between beginning and end of this, what could be the pandemic could be a year and a half to 2 years. Some people don't want to wait. So a lot of my couples are postponing their party, but they actually did the ceremony on the roof of their building during the pandemic with 5 people, just the closest friends. Just having someone that's a best man maid of honor, but then all their family didn't, no one got to be a part of it. So then they're having their party a year and a half from now. Some people are doing that. And then some people are just waiting altogether to have their wedding until they can have everyone there that they want. So I think that you have to be open to change and open to doing something a little bit different than you originally thought.
And regarding your, thank you so much for that. And regarding consultations with you, like say for example, cake tasting, for example, and they are from another state. How do you do that?
Well, some of the cake companies that I have, they will send out. You can mail anything these days. One thing that I'm not really a chef at all, but I make ice cream. Ice cream is like my thing. Everyone knows me really
You're
well.
good at so many things except that, right? Okay.
And actually, it's probably one of the most difficult things that you could ever think about mailing someone, right? So if you can mail ice cream, I always say you can mail cake. It's not that big of a deal. So some of the cake distributors and vendors that I use, they can mail out cake for tastings, dry ice. You can do some wonders with cake. So it's not that big of a deal. I think we've all become so much more inclined to be open to be able to all these changes, like you said, as far as even as tasting is concerned, you can do virtually, not virtually, but you can send things and do it a little bit different than we used to do.
Jeff, do you charge for consultation?
No, I basically I'll meet a potential client. I'll have a couple of different meetings with them. I think that an event planner is very personal, so I think that the personality has to connect. It has to be someone that you feel a connection with, that you feel close to, because you're going to spend a lot of time with this person in the upcoming months. So I don't charge a fee just to meet someone to see if it's going to work. I'll do proposals, et cetera, before I start charging any kind of a fee. Then once we've decided that we want this relationship and we can actually work together, then we start talking about money and fees and et cetera. So, and there's all different ways of paying a planner. It's done. Some people do it on a percentage. Some people do it on a flat fee. The percentage could be the total cost of the event. And then some people do a combination of both. So there's really not a set way that planners charge. But this one thing in today's age in particular, you can get the money that you spend for a planner, you're going to get it back probably fivefold from just their expertise, taking them to the right vendors. Because you could save enough on a photographer to be able to pay half of your event planner by choosing the right photographer. Because if you don't, you don't do weddings all the time. You don't do events all the time too. All these little nuances you may not be aware of. So that's where your planner comes in, and you can get your money back from hiring the right planner just by what they bring to the table. So,
What are the three main advantages of hiring a wedding planner versus doing it yourself?
I think number one is your vendors. You've got this group of vendors that are proven, that you don't have access necessarily if you just decide to do it yourself. That's one of the big things. Their knowledge, their expertise is another thing, especially the day of age of this virtual live. Going into this, you wouldn't have any idea how to go about doing a wedding like that. And knowing the right AV people, knowing the right caterers, because I'll get back to the third one in a second, because catering part is very important too with this whole pandemic. You want to keep your staff down to a minimum because less staff, less chance of catching something from someone else. And so this one caterer that I worked with, they did like basically it's a dinner in a box, which is like a 12 by 12 box. They had 3 courses, all room temperature, very fresh food, very beautifully presented, but all room temp. Had a lid on it. So basically you could serve and clear 3 courses without having to clear and serve 3 courses. You had all 3 right there in front of you. You removed the lid, and then you've got your very safe but a beautiful, nice meal. So knowing the right caterer that would be able to do this is very important. So that's part of what the planner comes in. And then just the planner is just intuitive as far as your budget's concerned. They can help set you on the right track so that you can stay within the limits of your budget that you want to stay within. And then, the knowledge as far as running an event, the running of the event is so important. And having your planner, you don't have to think about that. You don't have to worry about that. Because some venues, they come with managers that can do this. But then some venues don't have that expertise as far as keeping the timeline together, keeping your event on track. That's not just prior to with budget, but then on the day of with running everything. It's so important to have someone that's educated, experienced to be in charge of that whole thing.
Yes, and quite frankly, when you are the celebrant, you'd like to be able to enjoy it and not stress over the little details that, oh
Right.
my gosh, will the flowers be delivered on time? How about my dress? While you're getting fitted, you have to, your mind is wandering. Now you look very stressed, and you, instead of you being able to actually be fully present in the moment, let the experts take care of what they know how to do best. And one of the things that I actually took from you is also the fact that you don't have to worry about having to fight a vendor, who act, because these are already vetted vendors. You have already a great relationships with them, and you know that they are reliable, and they
Yeah.
operate with integrity. And of course, somebody like you with a wealth of experience, who is very perfectionist, and is also very committed to the excellent job that you do to make each event, each wedding very memorable, whether it be first, second, third, or more.
Right, and also another point that is very important too, and I tell my clients is that you're a one-off. Like if someone's wanting to, they're hiring a photographer or a videographer, but they want to make me as happy as they make the client because I've got more events over and over and over for this vendor, and you may be just getting married once, and so they want to make me as happy as they make the client. So that gives you a
Because
little more a
I have
lead.
invited several vendors actually to this broadcast, because so many of them, I said, like, okay, this, if you want to partner with somebody who is actually seasoned when it comes to experience and expertise, this is the one type of person that you want
Yeah.
to do business with. And so I actually tag a number of people and send private messages for people to watch, learn, and also reach out to you to partner with you in this special moments of people's lives.
And that's
Jeff,
one thing that's so great about the divorce dynasty is that's basically what has happened. You've got the best of the best in all these different industries brought together, so you don't have to make a lot of decisions, which is sure leading to the next point. That's why this is such a great organization because you don't have to think through all those different things that you need when you're getting
you're right.
divorced.
Yeah, right. Like as you go through divorce, you will be needing different experts to
Right.
help you with your life transition in so many different aspects. That's why we are like basically a hub, a touch point of
Yes.
vetted professionals. And I could not be more actually thankful to Carolina Denhard, who is a divorce attorney, family law attorney, and also international law attorney, for putting together this incredible group, so that we may be able to bring value to people's lives, make your transitions easier, and help celebrate it in a massive, spectacular way through, of course, Jeff Stillwell,
There
right?
you go. There you go.
Okay, when they want to reach out to you and do a consultation, how do they best reach you? What's your phone number, website?
I think the best thing would be go to my website, and like I mentioned before, Party Slate is another great platform to be able to look at me and to send me messages.
Can you repeat that? It kind of, I lost it. Party
Party Slate, Party Slate is the
Party
name.
Slate. PARTYSLATE.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
Party
Or
Slate.
Party Slate. It's like a basically it's a very very high end, very well done website. Basically, it's a website for all these different vendors, and going from a venue to a photographer to a videographer to a caterer. And then that's one way that you can get a hold of me. But then you could also get a hold of me on my website, stillwelleventsnyc.com, or you could write me just an email at jeff@stillwelleventsnyc.com.
Okay, Stillwell. Stillwell.
Stillwell. Mm-hmm.
Stillwell Events
NYC.com.
NYC.com. That's
Probably the
awesome.
best way to get a hold of me, most
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm sure everybody will be so excited to even take a look at how you do wedding virtually or hybrid now, and also be able to going forward as we move through this pandemic, as we recover from this. We want to be able to see how we can plan our future celebrations
Right.
with Stillwell events. Jeff, it was such an unbelievably wonderful afternoon speaking with you. Thank you for all the tips that you have shared with us, your genius, and for actually giving us the comfort knowing that we don't have to actually diminish the joy and the beauty of our celebration, because we can certainly do it in a hybrid way.
Yes,
So
love doesn't wait. Love doesn't wait. So you've got to move for it. So we
yes, Jeff, keep shining your light. And I look forward to also meeting you in person very, very soon. And hopefully, we'll be able to collaborate as well through the Divorce Dynasty. All
yeah,
right. All
definitely.
right.
We will do that soon. Thank you so much for having me today. It's
You're
been
welcome. You're welcome. Well, I hope that you were able to enjoy the tips that Jeff had shared with us. Stay well, stay healthy, and until then, live your life gratefully and fully. This is Furley Almonte, your host, on behalf of Carolina Denhard from the D Word and the Divorce Dynasty. Until next time, take care now. Bye bye.
bye. Thank you.